The day everything became unclear was the day I truly began to see. It did not start with noise. It started with silence. The kind of silence that follows bad news. The kind that sits in your chest and refuses to leave. I remember standing still, holding a piece of paper that told me nothing was guaranteed anymore. Plans I trusted were suddenly weak. Dreams I counted on felt far away. And yet the world kept moving. People laughed. Cars passed. Life acted like nothing had changed. But inside me, everything had. Uncertainty is a strange place. It has no clear road signs. No promises. No answers when you ask, "What now?" That was where I found myself. Lost but awake. I used to believe strength was loud. That it looked like confidence. That it came when you had everything figured out. I was wrong. Strength often shows up when you have nothing figured out at all. That season of my life tested everything I thought I knew. Work became unstable. Money became tight. Hope felt fragile. Some mornings, I woke up afraid of the day. Other mornings, I woke up determined not to let fear win. There was no middle ground. One evening, I sat alone and asked the hardest question I had ever faced. What if this never gets better? The room did not answer me, but something inside me did. Then I will still keep going. That was the first time I chose determination over comfort. It was not easy. It was not brave. It was necessary. I learned quickly that uncertainty does not disappear when you ignore it. It grows when you avoid it. So I faced it. I began to focus on what I could control. My effort. My attitude. My discipline. Everything else had to wait. Hard work became my anchor. Even when results were slow, I showed up. I worked when I felt motivated. I worked when I felt tired. I worked when doubt whispered that it was useless. Because uncertainty loves people who quit early. Commitment became my shield. I made promises to myself and kept them, even when no one was watching. Wake up. Try again. Learn something new. Improve a little. Day after day. Some people around me gave up. They said the times were too hard. They waited for things to settle. I couldn't wait. Life does not pause until you feel ready. One night while walking home under a dark sky, I realized something powerful. Uncertainty was not my enemy. It was my teacher. It was teaching me patience. It was teaching me focus. It was teaching me how strong I could become without applause. I stopped asking for certainty. I started building strength instead. That shift changed everything. I began to see small victories where I once saw failure. I began to feel hope where I once felt fear. Hope did not come as a feeling. It came as a decision. A decision to believe that effort matters. A decision to trust that light exists, even when you can't see it yet. That was the beginning. Not the end of struggle, but the start of growth. And the journey into strength had only just begun. The days that followed were not kinder. They were honest. Uncertainty did not fade. It tested me again and again, like it wanted proof that I meant what I said. Some mornings I woke up ready to fight. Other mornings I woke up tired before the day even started. But I kept moving. I learned something important early on. You don't need clarity to take the next step. You only need courage. I stopped waiting to feel confident. Confidence comes after action, not before it. So I acted. I worked harder but with intention. I focused on learning skills instead of complaining about my situation. I listened more than I spoke. Focus became my compass. When the world felt noisy and confusing, I narrowed my attention to what mattered most. One task, one day, one goal at a time. There were days I failed. Days when effort did not bring immediate results. Days when rejection knocked louder than hope. I remember one night sitting on the floor, back against the wall, asking myself why I kept trying. The answer surprised me. Because stopping hurts more. Giving up would have meant accepting a life built on fear. And I wasn't ready for that. Hard work began to shape my character. It taught me discipline. It taught me patience. I stopped chasing fast success. I started respecting slow growth. Slow growth is still growth. One afternoon, someone I respected said to me, "You're different now, you don't panic like before." I smiled. I had learned that panic steals energy. Focus gives it back. As days turned into weeks, something subtle changed. I stopped seeing uncertainty as a threat. I started seeing it as open space. Space to learn. Space to grow. Space to become someone stronger than my circumstances. If you're listening to this right now, stay with me. Subscribe and walk this journey with me. Because this story isn't just about uncertainty, it's about what you can become inside it. I made mistakes. I corrected them. I lost opportunities. I created new ones. Commitment kept me grounded when emotions tried to pull me away. I promised myself I would show up even on days when motivation was gone. And I did. Hope slowly changed shape. It was no longer wishful thinking. It became quiet confidence. Not the kind that shouts. The kind that stands firm. The journey to light is not a straight road. It curves. It slows. It challenges you. But with every step forward, even in uncertainty, I felt something growing inside me. Strength. Real strength. And I knew this path still had more to teach me. There came a moment when uncertainty stopped feeling like an emergency and started feeling like a season. That realization did not make life easier, but it made it clearer. Seasons change when you outgrow them. I began to understand that uncertainty does not mean you are failing. Sometimes it means you are becoming. I paid closer attention to my thoughts. I noticed how quickly fear tried to take control. So I challenged it. Whenever fear said, "You're not ready," I replied, "I will learn." Whenever doubt whispered, "This won't work," I answered, "I will try anyway." Those conversations shaped my courage. Hard work stopped feeling like punishment. It became preparation. Preparation for opportunities I could not yet see. One day, something small but important happened. I was asked for help. Someone noticed how consistent I had been. They trusted my effort. That trust meant more to me than money. It reminded me that commitment builds reputation long before it builds success. I took on more responsibility. Not because I felt fearless, but because growth lives outside comfort. There were nights I lay awake, wondering if I was doing enough. But instead of spiraling, I planned. Focus became my safety net. I broke big problems into smaller steps. I celebrated progress instead of perfection. That changed my mindset. I stopped chasing certainty. I started building capability. Capability survives uncertainty. The journey to light is not about removing darkness. It's about learning how to walk through it without losing yourself. If you are listening and you feel stuck, hear this clearly. You are not weak for feeling unsure. You are human. Strength is not the absence of fear. It is movement in spite of it. Slowly, opportunities began to align. Not magically, but logically. Effort attracts opportunity. People began to notice my consistency. Doors did not fly open, but they unlocked. I stepped through carefully. Every step reinforced a lesson. Uncertainty sharpens focus. Focus strengthens commitment. Commitment turns effort into growth. I didn't realize it then, but I was changing. The person who once needed reassurance was becoming someone others leaned on. And that transformation was far from over. There was a point when I stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "Who am I becoming because of this?" That question changed how I saw everything. Uncertainty was no longer something chasing me. It was something walking beside me. I noticed how calm I had become in moments that once scared me. Problems still came, but they no longer controlled my emotions. I learned to pause, to think, to respond instead of react. That is a kind of strength no one talks about. One day, a challenge appeared that would have crushed me before. The kind that shakes your plans and tests your patience. This time I breathed. I wrote things down. I asked for advice. I worked through it step by step. And I survived it. Not perfectly, but honestly. That was when I realized something powerful. Growth is not about avoiding problems. It is about becoming someone who can handle them. My focus became sharper. I protected my time. I chose my battles carefully. Not everything deserved my energy. Hard work continued, but it felt lighter now. Because it was guided by purpose, not panic. I committed to finishing what I started. Even when it was uncomfortable. Especially when it was uncomfortable. Uncertainty still existed. But it no longer defined me. I defined myself by how I showed up. Day by day. Step by step. The journey to light does not rush you. It waits for you to grow strong enough to carry it. And I was still walking. Still learning. Still becoming. The story was far from over. But one thing was clear. I had found strength where I once found fear. And the next chapter would demand even more of it. You don't notice it growing until you are forced to use it. One morning, I faced a decision that had no clear answer. Either choice came with risk. Either path carried loss. That is the heart of uncertainty. No guarantees. No safety net. I stood there for a long time thinking. In the past, I would have waited. Hoped someone else would decide for me. Prayed for a sign that removed all fear. This time, I did something different. I chose based on values, not fear. I asked myself, which choice moves me forward, even if it's hard? Then I stepped. That step did not fix everything. But it changed me. I learned that courage is not loud. It is quiet and steady. It says, "I don't know what will happen, but I will face it." The days after that decision were heavy. More work. More responsibility. More moments of doubt. But something else appeared too. Respect. People trusted me with more. They listened when I spoke. They saw reliability where there used to be hesitation. I realized that consistency earns trust long before success arrives. There were still nights I felt unsure. Uncertainty never fully leaves. But now it felt smaller. Because I had proof. Proof that I could survive hard days. Proof that effort compounds. Proof that focus creates clarity over time. I stopped wishing for easy answers. I started building strong habits. Wake up with intention. Work with focus. Rest without guilt. Reflect honestly. Those habits became my foundation. The journey to light is not a sudden moment. It is built quietly, choice by choice. If you're listening right now and your life feels unclear, remember this. You don't need certainty to grow. You need commitment. You don't need perfect conditions to begin. You need determination. You don't need to see the whole road. You need to take the next step. I was still walking through uncertainty, but I was no longer afraid of it. Because somewhere along the way, uncertainty stopped being a weakness and became the place where my strength was forged. And there was still more ahead. There was a quiet confidence growing in me now. Not pride, not arrogance. Confidence built from proof. Proof that I could fall and stand again. Proof that effort mattered. Proof that uncertainty did not own me anymore. One evening, while sitting alone, I looked back at the person I used to be. The one who waited for perfect timing. The one who needed reassurance before moving. I almost didn't recognize that version of myself. Uncertainty had stripped me of comfort, but it gave me clarity. It showed me what truly mattered. Not applause, not approval, but progress. I began to measure success differently. Success was waking up and trying again. Success was staying focused when distractions called. Success was keeping commitments even when emotions shifted. Hard work stopped feeling heavy because it now had direction. Direction turns effort into purpose. There were still days when things went wrong. Plans failed. People disappointed me. Unexpected problems appeared. But instead of breaking, I adjusted. Adaptation became my strength. I learned that life rarely follows the plan you write down, but it often rewards the person who refuses to quit. One afternoon, someone said something that stayed with me. You're calm even when things are unclear. I smiled. Calm doesn't mean fearless. It means prepared. Prepared to learn. Prepared to adjust. Prepared to keep walking. The journey to light does not remove uncertainty. It teaches you how to move through it with wisdom. I started helping others who felt lost. Not by giving perfect answers, but by sharing my process. I told them the truth. That growth is uncomfortable. That clarity comes later. That commitment matters more than confidence. As I spoke, I realized something surprising. Teaching strengthened my own understanding. The lessons I learned in uncertainty were becoming part of who I was. And deep down, I knew this path still had another test waiting. Not to break me, but to prove how far I had come. Because the story of finding strength in uncertainty is not about escaping the unknown. It's about becoming someone strong enough to face whatever comes next. And that next step was closer than I realized. The test came without warning. That is how uncertainty works. It never sends a message ahead of time. One day, everything seemed steady. The next, something important slipped out of reach. An opportunity I had worked toward disappeared. Plans I had built carefully began to shake. For a moment, the old fear tried to return. The voice said, "Here we go again. What if this is where it falls apart?" I felt it in my chest. That familiar tightness. But this time, I noticed something different. I did not freeze. I did not panic. I paused. I had learned that uncertainty tests not your strength, but your reaction. So I asked myself the question that had guided me before. What can I do next? Not next year. Not next month. Next. That single question kept me grounded. I reviewed my options. I adjusted my plans. I accepted what I could not control. Acceptance is not giving up. It is choosing not to waste energy fighting reality. Hard work returned to its place. Not rushed. Not desperate. Focused. I doubled down on what I could improve. My skills, my habits, my consistency. There were days it felt slow again. Days when progress was invisible. But I trusted the process this time, because I had lived through proof. Uncertainty had tried to break me before, and failed. I noticed how far I had come when someone close to me said, "I don't know how you stay hopeful." I thought about that. Hope was no longer a feeling I waited for. It was something I practiced. Hope looked like showing up. Hope looked like effort. Hope looked like refusing to quit quietly. The journey to light does not promise ease. It promises growth to those who stay. And I stayed, even when answers were delayed, even when outcomes were unclear. I learned that strength grows fastest in moments where quitting makes sense. I was still walking through uncertainty, but now I walked with my head up, because I knew something for sure. No matter what came next, I had already found something greater than certainty. I had found strength, and the path ahead was about to ask me to use it in ways I never expected. The weeks that followed felt heavier than anything I had faced before. Not because life had worsened, but because the stakes were higher. Every decision mattered more. Every action carried weight. Every delay risked losing ground I had fought so hard to gain. And yet in that pressure, something remarkable happened. I realized I was no longer afraid of the unknown. I had learned to see beyond it. One evening, as I reviewed my plans, my phone buzzed. It was a message from someone I had once doubted could trust me. "I've been watching your work. I want to collaborate." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Opportunity, not certainty, not a guarantee, but a chance. I smiled quietly. This is what growth feels like. Not sudden success, not perfection, but the ability to keep moving and recognize when doors open, even if you cannot see all of the hallways. I accepted the collaboration. I worked harder than ever, not because I feared failure, but because I had learned that effort compounds. Every choice, every small step, every moment of focus, they all added up. And slowly, I began to feel a shift. The fog of fear and doubt that had haunted me for months started to lift. I could breathe a little easier. I could plan a little further ahead. I could see the possibilities that had been invisible before. But life's lessons were not finished. Uncertainty had taught me patience. It had taught me courage. It had taught me focus. Now it was teaching me resilience. I faced setbacks minor, yet sharp enough to test me. A missed deadline, a miscommunication with a colleague, unexpected expenses. I could have panicked. I could have felt like quitting. Instead, I paused. I assessed. I adjusted. I acted. That was the difference. I had learned to move through uncertainty, not be paralyzed by it. And that made all the difference. One night, I sat with my journal and wrote, "Strength isn't found in perfect conditions. It's found in the space between fear and action." And in that moment, I realized the truth. Life will never give guarantees. It will never promise ease. But it will give those who persist a chance to grow. If you're listening to this story, pause for a moment and reflect. Remember to subscribe and stay with us. Because this journey is about more than my story. It's about learning how to find your strength, even when everything feels uncertain. The path ahead is still unclear. But now I walk it with purpose, with courage, with the knowledge that strength is not something you wait for. It is something you find when you keep moving. And the next chapter, it will test every lesson I've learned so far. But I am ready, because I have already discovered that even in uncertainty, hope focus, and determination can light the way. And then came the moment when everything became clear, not in certainty, but in understanding. I realized something important. Life does not owe us clarity. It does not promise comfort, but it does give us choices. Choices about how we respond. Choices about whether we give up or keep moving. Choices about whether we allow fear to control us or determination to guide us. I looked back at the months I had walked through uncertainty, and I saw growth everywhere. I had learned to act even when the path was unclear. I had learned to focus when distractions screamed for my attention. I had learned to commit to myself even when the world seemed to falter around me. I had learned that hard work builds more than results. It builds character. I had learned that hope is not passive. It is an action you choose every single day. Strength, I realized, is not a destination. It is forged in the fires of the unknown. It is built one deliberate step at a time. And it is discovered when you refuse to stop, even when stopping feels easier. If you're listening to this story right now, thank you for walking this journey with us. Thank you for listening, for staying, for believing that growth is possible even in the hardest seasons. Remember the lessons from this journey. Uncertainty does not equal failure. Focus beats fear. Commitment turns effort into progress. Hard work builds character as much as results. Hope is a choice, not a feeling. If this story has inspired you, remember to subscribe and continue walking your own journey to light. No matter what challenges come, remember, your strength is already inside you, waiting to be discovered in the spaces where life feels uncertain. And always remember, you don't need everything figured out to start growing. You just need to take the next step. The path ahead may still be unknown, but now you know you can walk it.